ticket. And that gives you 2 chances in our super great raffle where we have, I think, 13 prizes to give away today. So we couldn't do it without our sponsors. First, I want to thank the Urban Hive. Brandon, are you back there? He's back there a minute ago. The Urban Hive has been our home for about 3 years now. We have events here about 6 times a year. They're very generous hosts, and it's a really nice space, so we're thankful for them. And then our food sponsor tonight was The Grange, the restaurant in the Maple Citizen Hotel. So we thank them very much for that. And then today we're providing beer tasting. We don't always have that at our events, but we're very thankful to have Roostaller beer here. And then the Sacramento Press is has been our sponsor for the longest amount of time. Chris, how long have you been hauling water and sodas and ice for us? And I think if it wasn't you, it was your predecessor. Yeah, so before that, I think Colleen or someone else, for 4 years they've been supporting us. And when we were a smaller organization, we had events at the Sacramento Press a few times. So anyway, we couldn't do it without our sponsors. That's how we're able to bring these events to you at no charge. I also wanted to tell you a little bit about the raffle. Our sponsors for that, organizations donate prizes to us. In exchange, we tweet the heck out of them and share their Facebook pages and those sorts of things. So everyone should have a raffle ticket. And then I also wanted to give each of our speakers tonight an extra ticket, our panelists. You didn't get one the first time. Did you get one?
I did.
And then those of you, okay, so on with the show. I wanted to introduce Jeannie Asajian. Did I get it right?
You did.
I did. She's on the board of directors for PRSA as director at large, and she's going to tell you a little bit about PRSA.
Hi, everybody. Greetings from PRSA, Public Relations Society of America, the Sacramento chapter. We're really pleased to be a part of this evening. PRSA was founded in 1947. We're the largest and foremost public relations-oriented organization in the world, actually. And we cover all disciplines of public relations, including social media. We offer membership and accreditation for those brave enough to undertake that. And we have monthly luncheon meetings. There is a charge for our meetings. Membership provides you with a break in pricing. Some of the things that we focus on, in addition to professional development, are standards of excellence and a code of ethics that all PRSA members and especially accredited members are bound to follow. We have a meeting coming up. Our September meeting is scheduled for September the 20th, and it's a luncheon meeting at Chops, which is downtown right across from the Capitol on the L Street side. And our topic that evening is ethics. And we're going to be hearing from Denise Tyrell, who is a representative for the California Public Utilities Commission. And my understanding is she'll be talking about a lot of incidents we've read about recently, such as the San Bruno explosion that involved PG&E, and so that should be pretty interesting. I'd be happy to answer any questions that any of you have. If you want to catch up with me later, I'd love to talk to you about PRSA, and thanks again.
Anybody have an empty seat next to them? There's one there, one right there. Okay, so since so many of you are new, I just wanted to share another thing with you. We are crazy about tweeting in Social Media Club Sacramento, and we tweet all of our events with the hashtag SMCSAC. Is there anyone who's not sure what a hashtag is? Okay. We frequently live stream our events. Tonight we're not live streaming, but we are recording, and we'll be uploading it to our Ustream channel, and we'll tweet about that, of course, so you can direct friends to go watch that. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to our moderator, Jen Picard. How many of you have heard the Insights radio program on Capital Public Radio? It's one of my favorites. Jen is a senior producer for Insight, and I'm just so excited to have her as our moderator. I'm excited about our whole panel, but I'm going to let Jen introduce them to you. But I wanted to give you a little background on Jen. She's been in media for over 15 years, and she's experienced both in radio and newspaper. While she was a student at Humboldt State University, she had her own weekly show, and she worked at an intern at KUBA in Yuba City as the weekend and afternoon news anchor. So after she graduated with a degree in journalism and mass communications, she worked for the Appeal Democrat newspaper in Marysville, California, and they are on Twitter.
Yes. They weren't then, though.
They weren't then. I'm not sure Twitter was invented in 2000, but she left in 2006. She thought she wanted to pursue a freelance writing career, but the siren song of the radio just called her back. And in July of 2006, she started working at Capital Public Radio, and she's now the senior producer at Insight. And let you in on a little secret. Journalism is a family affair, and Jen's husband is a photojournalist, Max Whitaker. So, without further ado,
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. In the interest of complete and full disclosure, I'm a Facebook fiend and a Twitter neophyte. In fact, I sent my first tweet today. So, don't hate. I am really excited about this panel because I expect to learn an awful lot, and I plan to steal all of their ideas and bring them back to our newsroom so I actually seem like I know what I'm doing. So basically, I want to introduce our panelists, and then we're going to hear a little bit from each of them about their careers and how they're currently using social media. So down at the end, we have Judy Farah. She is the news director and senior editor at KFBK. Next to her is Matt Weiser. He is a reporter at the Sacramento Bee. And this is Sabrina Rodriguez right here. She's a multimedia reporter and fill-in anchor at Fox 40 News. She was up in a helicopter today covering the fires. And then this is Kelly Johnson. She's with the Sacramento Business Journal. She is a longtime reporter and editor and in charge of their social media. So why don't we go ahead and start with you, Kelly, and tell us a little bit about your career and how you're currently using social media.
I've been a reporter for 24 years, been in the Business Journal for 15 and a half years. I caught the social media bug 4 years ago with help from some of the club members and realized it was a big thing. The Business Journal needed to get involved, and so I started using Twitter and Facebook and started pushing our fellow journalists into using it. They finally don't think I'm crazy. They're starting to get it. But I'm also our social media strategist, so I help develop the strategy of how we are using it in-house. And I primarily use Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I do a little bit on Google+, mostly just sharing our stories. LinkedIn, great for finding sources, finding the right sources that we want. I'm a paid member, so I get to send all those free in-mails, so I have access to a lot more people that way. Twitter, I'm on Twitter throughout the day, sharing our stories, letting people know me better, getting to know them better, seeing what the competition is doing, finding out about reports and such, industry news that I should be aware of. And then on Facebook, it's more a little bit more personal. Again, sharing links to our stories, but getting to know more of my sources, what they're interested in, and letting them know the personal side.
Nice. And Sabrina, what about you at Fox 40 News?
Okay, so I'm gonna guess and take a stab here. I'm probably the one with the least amount of just business experience on the panel, but probably equal in terms of social media. So I have been in TV news for about 10 years or so, and was always sort of within the social media world anyway, but personally, so starting out with MySpace, Facebook, things like that. So it wasn't until I got into doing this as a career that you realize, hey, people like to connect on Facebook, and everyone and their mother, that's one of the first things they do in the morning when they wake up is check their Facey space. So then became the split where I have to have my professional page and also my personal Facebook page. So that's where the real split probably happened about maybe 5 years ago when I was working in Massachusetts, and I was just getting all of these friend requests from viewers, and you realize, okay, there needs to be a separation because things I complain about in my personal life that viewers really shouldn't have to see. So, and pictures too. But that's one of those things as well. So you have a persona also that you have to present to the public as well, and a way to even just connect with people professionally. And it wasn't until I came to Fox 40 that, because I used to just have 2 actual Facebook profile pages, and it wasn't until I came here that I transitioned to a fan page, which is a completely different ball game. If anyone has a fan page, it's slightly different. You don't really have the same access to people that you normally would. They can message you and things like that, but in terms of surfing around and finding people and tracking people down, that's a little bit harder to do. It's also kind of the reason I kept my MySpace page, because whenever we need to look up someone who maybe has been trolling for young children, they tend to be on MySpace. So things like that. And
So there is a use for MySpace other
there
than just
still
Facebook.
is. No, I'm kidding. You let your pet down. So, but again, I tweet constantly. I'm also I have yet to really jump on board the Google Plus bandwagon, but I do have a Google Plus page. I Instagram like crazy. I love Instagramming. And all kinds of Pinterest. That's another great way of reaching out to people. And again, just I've noticed that in the last few years, people they don't maybe necessarily they want you as a person. So the more you can show of your personality, the more they can connect with you on your Pinterest page or your Instagram or even your Facebook page. It feels like that they get to know you. So we always used to say these events where we would go to and sit in a little box or in a little booth and like people meet you like, oh, I watch you every morning. You can do that through Facebook, like with everyone. If you just respond to a message, it's almost the same kind of connection nowadays. So.
Very nice. Matt, what about you at the Bee? How are you using social media? And you've been in the business for more than 20 years. How has that changed for you?
Well, I've been in newspapers in California for about 24 years overall. I've also been a freelance writer. So obviously that predates everything we're talking about. But I guess I'm most active on Twitter. I got involved in Twitter probably, I think it was around December of 2009. And I was one of the first people at the Bee to really go into it aggressively. I'm also on Facebook, LinkedIn. I have a Pinterest account that I haven't really messed with yet.
It's fun.
It looks interesting, but time consuming. It's all time consuming. So I don't do a lot on Facebook or LinkedIn. I update them maybe a couple times a week, but I use Twitter a lot. I post tweets throughout the day. I use it to, I guess I saw it originally as a way to kind of brand myself. I cover environmental issues for the Bee. And I saw at the time that this was a potential niche where I could provide information to people on Twitter about environmental issues in California. And nobody was doing it at the time. There are a few more that are doing it now, but I think I've had a fair amount of success with it. And so I use it to basically cover a lot of things that I can't cover in the Bee. So I think I have a lot of followers on Twitter who use my Twitter feed to learn about environmental issues in California, and that's what I use it for. I post a lot of stuff on Twitter that comes to me through email or other sources, and people look to it to learn about energy issues, climate change, wildlife, water quality, you name it. And I haven't really found that it's, for me anyway, that it's a great source for obtaining information for my feed. I still get most of that the old-fashioned way, if you will, from having relationships with people, phone calls, interviews, and that sort of thing. But Twitter is a very good way for me to learn about what's happening with environmental issues in California and to kind of share all that with other people.
So Judy, you are the news director at KFBK. You're kind of setting the agenda for the day. How do you use social media in your newsroom, and how did you get started using it?
I use it a lot. First of all, I want to thank so many people for being here. The SAC Social Media Club is a great organization. I've been to 4 or 5 of these panels, emails, which were all good. This is the largest group I've ever seen. So forgive me, I just arrived back on vacation last night, so I'm hopeful I'm coherent. I'm glad to hear that these two have been in the news business for 25 years, because so have I. I started my career on the East Coast as a newspaper reporter, right outside New York City. And then I moved to Los Angeles for 10 years, where I was a reporter and news and editor for the Associated Press in Los Angeles. Then I came up here, I started working for KFBK. I've been there 15 years. I also blog for the Huffington Post. I do freelance writing for magazines, so I've worked in just about every medium except television. And now I really, I was just telling people, I never thought I would see this. I love newspapers. I'll read them till they're still around. But I had this epiphany about a year ago that he agrees with me. He's Jonathan Santiago. I get all my breaking news from Twitter. Emails from newspapers, television stations are later. News agencies come in later. If you're going to find something that's happening right now, it's going to be on Twitter most of the time. 95% of it's accurate. So I started using Twitter 3 years ago. I was very honored to get a 3-week journalism fellowship to Asia. I was going to Hawaii, Hong Kong, China, and Japan, and I wanted to write about my adventures, more like a travel log. So that's when I first signed up for Newsbabe 1530 to write like little accounts of my adventures so my friends could read it back home. So when I got back, I started using it for news, and now I tweet a lot. And I'm caught in this bind now where I tweet a lot of news, but I also have to make commentaries. But as a news person, you have to be really careful. If you're watching the opening and closing ceremonies, you want to say something snarky, like, what the heck was that, you know? But you have to be careful, like, not to use opinion. I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm afraid to say this, I'm not on Facebook yet, and there's a good reason for that, but we're already starting my account. I'm in charge of all of KFBK's emails. I get 500 to 1,000 a day that I have to go through. And that's, I swear, it takes 2 to 3 hours of my time. I have to either respond or file or anything, just no time left over. So I had to make a decision. I can't be up to 2 o'clock in the morning. But we're thinking of embarking this weekend, so we'll see what happens. I'm glad to be here and look forward to your questions.
Well, Matt, you mentioned that you still get a lot of your information for stories the old-fashioned way, you know, from relationships, collecting from sources. So that begs the question, how is social media used in your respective newsrooms? Are you collecting information from people, making sources, making contacts, or are you using it primarily to push your stories out, or as you do, Matt, you know, kind of extend your beat's reach to people? Why don't we start with you, Sabrina? How are you using it in Fox 40?
So, and she made a very good point about breaking news alerts and things like that coming through Twitter, because we get that constantly from different police stations, different fire stations, especially with all the fires going on right now. But we still will do the call and confirm, because you just have to. That's just good news sense, and that's just something that you have to do. So even though, yes, Modesto PD or Stockton PD tweets about some homicide that they are covering, you still have to call Joe Silva. Hey, what's going on? Saw the tweet, just confirming before we go forward with anything. So that's...
So you never just report a tweet, you always confirm it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so, and the way it works in our newsroom, tweet comes in, someone sees it, mass email goes out to everyone in the newsroom, someone on the desk or whoever is maybe working on the story makes the call, and then another email goes out, okay, it's been confirmed, we go with it, or we retweet it, or something along those lines.
What about at the B, Matt?
Well, like I mentioned, I primarily use it to, as an extension of the work I do and of the B itself. It's a way to augment what I'm able to cover and what we can get into the B.
Do you ever get tips through Twitter?
Occasionally I get tips through Twitter. Some people are starting to use it as an alternative to the traditional email press release, which any alternative to email that I can fit into my job is great. I'm overwhelmed with email, and I don't like using email if I can avoid it. So I actually prefer if people contact me through Twitter. I do use it sometimes. Some government agencies and nonprofits, for instance, have gotten pretty savvy with Twitter, where they'll post up their news on Twitter before they put it anywhere else, and that's what I'd like to see more organizations do. One of my pet peeves is when somebody sends a news item out via email and they don't put it online for hours, and that makes it harder and slower for me to put it on Twitter. I can't just retweet what they've posted or put up a link to their press release if they haven't posted it. Sometimes I'll take their press release and put it online myself, but this is a way that I think a lot of organizations can do better on Twitter.
So Kelly, how do you use it as a business journal? Are you sourcing stories through Twitter or?
Rarely, yeah. It is more about getting to know the audience, letting them get to know me, being a service to the audience, I curate, industry news that I think would be of interest to my followers. I'm sharing that news with them, those reports. I am also, once in a while, for like a small business story, when I'm trying to find, who are small businesses that are using Pinterest, for example. I'm trying to find those people. Once in a while, I'll put a request for information out there, but that doesn't happen too much. I get a feel for what people are interested in, and also, again, especially with newspapers, at least you go back 20 years, it was reporters the fly on the wall. People didn't know anything about the newspaper or the reporters, and that has changed. People want to know who we are. They don't want us to be a mystery. They want to have a sense of who we are. And we as journalists are learning that we need to have this human side too.
Well, that begs a good question, actually. Many companies have policies for social media and how their employees use social media and how they should behave and conduct themselves on social media. Do your companies have those policies? And if they don't, do you have your own personal policy about how much you let people know who you are on Twitter or on Facebook? And Matt, why don't we start with you?
The B doesn't really have a policy about that as far as I know. And as far as I know, we haven't really had anybody in situations where we've had to have a policy. But my own policy is that I don't use Twitter for personal stuff. It's strictly work related. The way I see it is the people who follow me on Twitter, they do it because I'm a source of information about the issues that I cover, environmental issues primarily, and they don't pay attention to me to learn about what I had for lunch or what I do on the weekends. So I don't write about that stuff on Twitter, and so that that sort of avoids a lot of potential problems that would be conflict of interest or anything inappropriate.
So what about you, Judy? How do you set those policies for your staff?
KFDK doesn't really have any standard policies. We try to meet once or twice a year, all the reporters. I meet with them and we discuss what we're doing. I don't think anybody has crossed the line yet. It's really hard to. Reporters really just have fun tweeting out their stories, coming up with a clever headline to try to get people to listen up to read their story, because a lot of us are all doing the same story. And going back to what you said today, this morning, I went up to a dead body in a schoolyard for some Fox 40 tweet. So yes, we made the calls to check it out and find out it was parent suicide, but or we just we basically the reporters just try to engage all the people who are on Twitter to come to their story. It's a kind of fresh. We encourage to have fresh, bright leads. Opposite of you, I do news stuff. I do a lot of hard news, and same. I do personal stuff too. I'm going to McCooney's 25-year anniversary. You're going to hear about it. I'm having dinner at the kitchen with Randall Solomon. I'm going to be tweeting a picture of the dinner or something like that too. And I get a lot of. I use Twitter a lot to get ideas. We have a very small staff, but like I said, we all cover the same stories, and I call it the usual stories. We get tired of doing the gas line breaks or all the murders or the traffic accidents. So I follow a lot of people all over the country, a lot of political people in Washington, D.C., a lot of sports people, a lot of people in journalism or magazine writers, and I see what they're writing about. And so if somebody in D.C. is writing about some story, I will try to develop it into a reporter idea. So my reporters have 5 reporters, they have to do 2 stories a day. So I just don't want always to be the same usual stuff that's boring. I always try to find ideas to come up with different engaging stories.
And you're using Twitter to
I'm
do
using
that a lot.
Twitter. I'm not like copying what somebody does, but they spark an idea.
We all borrow.
It's a tip, it's a tip.
So Sabrina, I imagine it's a little bit different for you because you are on TV, people see you, they see your face, they take possession of you in a way. What's it like for you? How much do you share? And what's the policy at Fox 40?
Okay, so it seems like and it's been like I said, a couple news stations that I've worked at, we actually do have social media policies and what we talk about and things. And again, this is where the whole split of having a personal page and a professional fan page comes into play and makes my life a lot easier. However, that does not happen with Twitter nor with any of the other forms of social media. And I actually, you talking about not tweeting about personal things reminded me of one of my fellow reporters, Andrea Borba, who, if anyone has ever met Andrea, she's a very big personality and has no problem holding back and saying her opinion. However, that became a problem one time where she made some kind of comment and a viewer wrote an email saying who followed her on Twitter and said, I didn't appreciate that. I thought it was rude and tasteless and yada, yada, yada. So she then had to change her tweet or her Twitter sort of bio to say, reporter Klutz smartass tweets represent my opinion and not the opinion of Fox 40, though I will tweet about work using the Fox 40 hashtag. So it's one of those things as well of how you present yourself. So that was kind of and a lot of things, a lot of policies just come to light, when instances arise.
As we make mistakes?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was a scenario where it's like, okay, well, if that's going to be your Twitter that you're going to tweet the news to people, you've also got to let them know that this is also your personal opinion about certain things and whatnot, so that's where the bio came from. But for the most part, the Fox 40 sort of social media policy is, if you wouldn't want your mother to see it, would you tweet it or would you write it? It's kind of along those lines, basically. So know what you're putting out there, that millions of people see it, how people view it, but again, they want you to show a personality. That's the whole thing. Viewers, they want to engage you. They want to feel like they know you, and when they turn on the TV, that they have a connection with you, and so they can say, Sabrina, I really liked your hair today, because they will do that. Or I really like that outfit you were wearing, or something along those lines. Or I really like that story. So they feel like they can actually talk to you like a person, versus like just being an observer. They're actually engaged, and I think that's kind of how we're going to sort of save the news industry. If we get people engaged instead of just being a passive media where you just watch or you read or you listen.
So it's all about being upfront in the beginning,
Yes.
no matter where you're at. Kelly, what about you? Now you kind of set social media policy strategy at the Business Journal. What's the rule there for reporters, if there are?
We don't have an official policy. We find that everything keeps on changing too fast to really have an official policy. We use common sense as our guide, and we feel like social media, that is just another way to engage with people. So we don't act a different way when we're talking on the phone or when we're in person with someone. Same with social media. It's just a different way to engage. So the same way we would conduct ourselves on the phone in person, we just try to use common sense.
So when it comes to sourcing and vetting social media, do you use the same policies that you use with any other source? With Sabrina, you guys see a tweet, you make the follow-up phone call and confirm it before you go on the air with the information. That's kind of a general sourcing technique for all journalists. Is it the same with most social media stuff that you
We
might
learned one
use?
of the most scary thing that ever happened was the day that Gabrielle Giffords was shot. And was it NPR?
Yeah, saying that she had died.
Yeah, because I follow Washington Post, New York Times, and all that, and you hopefully think you could trust them. So it's just like my motto is, it's better to be correct there, better to be accurate than be first.
Well, that's a really, really good point, because there was
we all want to be first. I worked for Associated Press. We had a fight to be the first one out there, but you want to be correct, you can lose your whole reputation.
So has that increased with social media, this want to be first?
I think those first few mistakes that have been made, and same thing with the Supreme Court ruling, has really pushed people back and try to be more cautious.
So is there still a rush, though, to get your stories out there? I'm going to actually...
It's a competitive nature, sorry.
Yeah. So Matt, you're kind of an interesting recent story, your state park scandal. You broke on a Friday afternoon, I think, which is normally a dead time for news people to get stuff out there and get it to anybody. But it broke on Twitter and spread like wildfire. How did that work with your story? Did you go to Twitter first with it, or was it up on the Bee site? And
Well,
is there any pushback from the Bee to not have you push it out on Twitter right away and save it for the site or for the paper?
Well, that story actually started a week earlier with a story I did on
Vacation
the
buyout?
vacation buyout mess, and then the bigger piece of it came the following Friday about the surplus money deficit. This I said earlier that I still really rely on traditional kind of sources, and all of these stories have come that way. None of them come from Twitter. In fact, I worked on that story for 7 months off and on before anything got in the Bee. No, the Bee is, they're pretty aggressive about having us promote our stories through Twitter. So normally the way it works is as soon as I have a story, I'll write a short version for the website, and as soon as it goes on the website, I'll tweet about it.
Because you want a link for people to come back to, right?
Right.
Yeah.
On the other hand, sometimes there are cases where, and I don't actually recall if this was one of them that Friday, but for instance, some big news story will break and let's say a government agency posts a document related to it, and I suppose I may occasionally post that document online, tweet about that before the story goes up. It depends how competitive the situation is. Like with the park story, it was an exclusive. Nobody else had it. And so I wasn't going to let the world know until we had the story out. So I waited until my initial story was online, and then I tweeted about that.
And you had a lot of success with it. We picked it up at Capital Public Radio, and we actually had Matt on the show the following Monday.
Right.
And that all kind of came through Twitter. So.
Yeah, then, obviously it was a huge story, and a bunch of other people jumped on it afterwards, like we always have in media.
So what makes a tweet successful for you? What gets people to pay attention or retweet or even come back to you with more information? Kelly?
Well, I was also want to tie into what Matt was saying on when to tweet first. So, like the rest of them, yes, we want to have people come to our website. But in some cases, you can't wait for something to go on the website. What really comes to mind is I cover the business of the Kings. So I've spent the last 10 years covering efforts to get a new arena. So covering city council meetings, you're in there for 5 hours sometimes during the discussion about a new arena. And I live tweet that meeting. We can't wait for something to show up on our website. So I live tweet, and those, when we were still trying to get a new arena in this town, yes, that would be a successful tweet. You would have lots of retweets, you start getting a lot more followers. You know that's what people want to know.
So what about you, Sabrina? What is the policy for putting stories out onto Twitter, and what do you find works? I did know today that you were up in a helicopter because I was following your Twitter feed. So
And taking pictures from the helicopter, one of the few things you can do in PA will connect. And I will go back to your thing about sometimes holding stories, because we are also very, like everyone, we are in competition with other people and other organizations like us, KCRA, News 10, CBS 13, like all these, or CBS 31, all these different TV news, and we're all trying to fight with each other and get viewers and things like that. So there actually have been times where I've had stories where I know it's an exclusive in the sense that I'm the only one that's gotten it, but it's very easy for someone to get if they just did some work. But I've held stuff until about maybe 4:50, and then I'll tweet about it. So by that time, like when they decide to maybe make a phone call or try and get some information, everything's closed and no one's available to talk. So we try and sneak in that way. I've done that before. So you sometimes hold stuff back even though you know it's really good. This is when I worked in Bakersfield. We had a really good dog abuse. Well, not a good dog abuse story, but you know what I mean. I had gotten some documents that again, if whoever else happened to be covering it just stayed around and did some homework and would have chatted with some of the court people, they could have gotten these documents, and no one did. Everyone basically took off after whatever it was, and I'm the only one standing there, and it's really good stuff. And so I'm going and I'm talking about it with my news director, and we just said, okay, we're gonna hold it, we're gonna wait until 4:50, and then we're gonna send out the tweet, and we're gonna send out the Facebook alert, and the different alerts to let people know to watch and whatever it is. So I was like, as soon as I even went to our web guide, do not post it until about 4:45, 4:50, because there's no way anyone else can get it at that point, and then we'll talk about it. So there's a time when you hold back on stuff, and then there's a time to be first too as well. But another thing in talking about how to get people to read or to listen or to watch or to turn their TVs on, I steal a lot from Huffington Post. They have fantastic Twitter
Sometimes they have deceiving headlines.
They do. They have very deceiving headlines. But it gets you to click.
Yeah.
So if you're ever looking,
That's the idea.
if you're looking for someone to kind of model yourself after, look at the Huffington Post's Twitter. You should follow them anyway because they're awesome. But if you follow their Twitter feed, they have these amazing headline writers that gets you to click. You're like, oh, I want to know about that. And sometimes it's the big sad trombone, womp womp, but it gets you to click, and that's the idea. That if you can engage someone and you can get them to push the button and to go further, then you've kind of hooked them. And that's the idea. You can write it in a way that's leaving you wanting more, and that's just good tease writing in general too. A lot of where I have this, but there's so much more, and you're going to want to watch and stay for the next 5 minutes through the rest of this news block. That could be whatever, and until you get to the story. So it's the same thing. You just have to have that good hook.
And it makes it fun that we all become headline writers.
Yeah, exactly.
So how would you encourage people to use Twitter or social media to get a hold of you? If a business, I know there's a lot of PRSA folks here, they want to get your attention. How would they go about doing that? There are so many people tweeting, Facebooking, Instagramming, pinning, doing all kinds of stuff online. How do you cut through the noise, and how do people get your attention? Judy?
Well, to be really timely, UC Davis News Service is really good at having experts ready if there's any topic going on, whether it's the Olympics or problems in Syria or something. They always have tweets set up. You have a contact. You have all these professors ready to you could put on your radio. Today we got something from the California Lung Association talking about the air quality. I was looking to do that story. I wanted to do that story, how it could affect asthma and everything, and they put that story out. So to be timely, to make sure you cut to the chase, you have to 140 characters or less, to really give you the tip. We have somebody for you, one that's expert on what's happening today. And I just want to comment on two things to follow up with Kelly when you're talking about being at a city council meeting. One of the new beauties of Twitter, which I love, is that I have a reporter in the courtroom, out in the street, the standoff, or someplace else, and you're constantly getting updates. You don't have to wait for my afternoon news to start at 4 o'clock or the television news to start at 4. You're not really giving anything away. You're letting people know what's going on. It could be a community situation, like when the West Sacramento guy took over the freeway and the freeway was shut down. But the other thing I want to mention about being competitive, of being first and breaking, if there was any competitive story last year in Sacramento, it was the arena story. And everyone went nuts. Everyone had to be first. Everyone had to have their sources. And my reporter, Rob McAllister, went to Orlando for NBA weekend with 12 other journalists from Sacramento. And finally, they sat there all weekend. They missed the game. They didn't see anything. Monday morning, everyone comes out and they have a deal. And Rob was somehow tweeting, taking pictures, going live on the radio, recording, and doing all the texting all at the same time. So it comes to this thing like, how far are we going to go? We have to do it when it's a really breaking story. You do want to get it out as fast as everybody else. And what happens, I guess the only policy we might have is Jonathan Santiago, he works at KFK. We're a support group too. If somebody puts out a good tweet, we retweet it because we all have different followers. So it starts as one person doing this, and then it goes out to all these other people, so that more people get to see it. We kind of try to support each other that way.
Sabrina? How are you using, or now I'm totally lost. How should people get a hold of you, because I think from what I'm gathering from all of you is that you are using Twitter especially an awful lot, and you're using it to push your information and your stories out there. So how do you cultivate information from it? How do people get a hold of you and get information to you?
So I have gotten story ideas and things like that from Facebook. People will message me with a story idea or something like that, or they've contacted me and it's like, okay, well, send me a message or whatever it may be, and then I will call and confirm and do what I need to do. So, and there are sometimes the same thing as I believe Judy was saying, like you'll follow national feeds on Twitter and then you'll get story ideas maybe from that. I also still will follow up on old, like there's people from previous markets that I've worked at, other viewers, and they'll talk about something, and then there's a way to maybe they've made a comment to me about what's going on in Bakersfield or what's going on in Springfield, Massachusetts, and then from there it's like, oh, well, we might have something similar to that here. So, but people generally like to kind of get through me and to get my attention. I mean, it really, honestly, it's like I check all my messages. There have been people that email and ask, am I just an intern that's answering stuff for you? I'm like, dear God, I'm not that. No. I would never have that. And Fox 40 isn't like that at all. So, but there are people that send me a message on Facebook, and from there, who knows, sometimes story ideas do come from it. And, but for the most part, generally contacts that I've developed here, they know me, they shoot me an email like, hey, this is a really good idea, maybe we can work on this. And, but stuff has come from social media as well. And it's not like it's completely inundated with messages every day, like, oh, check this out, oh, check that out. And then I bounce ideas off of my coworkers as well, like, hey, does this work, or would we be interested in this? And then you pitch it in a story meeting, and sometimes it turns into something on 5:30 news.
So Matt, what's the best way to get information to you? You follow a lot of people within your feed. Is that how you're getting a lot of information, or do people tweet stuff at you?
It's I mostly get stuff from the people I follow. Like a lot of us, I created my own lists on Twitter of the most appropriate people who pay attention to the things I do, and I watch them closely, and I do get story ideas from there. I guess one of the most important pieces of advice, no matter how you contact me or any other journalist, is to make it appropriate to what I cover. Like, I get a lot of contacts from people about stuff that I don't cover, and it's, frankly, it just wastes my time. I'll try to help you, and I'll get the story to somebody at the B who covers it, but I'd rather you just figured out who that person was. It's not that difficult. We're all out there in public. It's pretty well known what we cover. So, be real thoughtful about who you go after with your message. And then people do direct message me on Twitter with story ideas or to ask questions, ask for more resources about something, and I like responding that way because it avoids the whole email back and forth. So that's another good way.
So do you like it when people ask you story or questions on Twitter about your stories?
Sure, yeah. I mean, sometimes I get people who will they'll want to track down a story I wrote 6 months ago, and I'll find it and email it to them. That kind of thing. Sometimes you reminded me of something about when you post and when you don't. Sometimes the story breaks and you want to be first with it, but then after it breaks, sometimes I'll use Twitter to kind of like broadcast resources to people. Like in the case of the state parks thing, when Ruth Coleman resigned, we put her resignation letter on our website, and I tweeted about that, telling people you can read the letter here. So we do that kind of thing with documents, and people look for that. But I would just encourage people to start using Twitter more to reach out to us.
Kelly, with the Business Journal?
Well, I have a somewhat different perspective. I don't want to be, if you're going to pitch something to me, so PR folks out there, still an email, that's the best way. But be active on Twitter, make comments on Business Journal stories, make comments on my tweets. Just be active so I'm paying attention to you, so I realize you're out there or your client's out there. And one little tip for, again, those of you in PR, your clients, if they are using Twitter, there is some companies have the auto response on their email, thanks for the follow. Well, that is wasted space just to say thanks for the follow if it's an auto response. You can say, we are about to release the such and such new product next month or something. I got a story from that one time. So a company that just had, instead of just a bland auto response, had a little teaser. And that is a very effective way to get our attention. Don't have that as wasted space. And in terms of the direct messages, once in a while it's a good way to cut through the email clutter. But if someone's going to send me like 5 direct messages that I have to cut and paste if I want to save that information, it's more hassle than it's worth. So then just a regular email is better.
So, I'm a new mom, and I have a strict rule that I'm not allowed to post more than one baby photo on Facebook. I think that's probably a good rule for most people. What's too much when it comes to Twitter, when you're using Twitter? Can you overdo it? Can you drive people away instead of bringing them to you? Matt?
Well, I think you can. I think it's too much to live tweet a meeting. I have people I follow who do that routinely, and I've unfollowed some of them because I don't want to see 100 tweets from somebody. I mean, frankly, when we were getting ready for the panel, we had kind of an email exchange, and one of the questions we talked about was like, how is journalism still relevant, and how is journalism going to be replaced by social media? I don't think it ever will be, and one of the reasons is that our job is to decide what's important, and so I'm not going to live tweet a meeting with 100 tweets. If I tweet from a meeting at all, it's going to be 1 or 2 things about what really mattered, and I think that's the value that we provide. And then I mainly use Twitter for work, and so, like I mentioned, I don't put a lot of personal stuff on there, and when people overdo it with that on Twitter, it kind of turns me off, because I just don't have time for it.
So Kelly, now you do live tweet
I do.
the city council meetings, so
And-
what's the value there?
And I have a different perspective. I don't know if anyone is familiar with Storify. So, first of all, before I talk about Storify, I think there is Twitter. You don't have to worry about overdoing it, I think, in most cases. That it'll quickly fly past if someone doesn't want to see all your tweets from an event or a meeting. They can easily ignore it. It's just going to disappear in a few seconds anyway. We like using having other people live tweet our events or meetings. There is this platform called Storify that captures the different, for the most part, Twitter feed. Captures different people's posts, and you can combine it, repackage it. You can take your own pictures and have,
Or YouTube videos.
We write, a little bit of a story, and then we have different voices from the community. So instead of saying, the reporter saying Tom Smith said, Jane Smith said, they're saying it themselves. They're getting their perspective from an event. So we had used this for several events. Some of our CFO of the Year event, we did it for the unconference that the Social Media Club provided. So I think there is value in getting a lot of voices. And yeah, I think if people want to tune you out, that's fine. But there are some people that want to get a lot of information about one particular event.
Storify is really interesting, and if you haven't checked it out, you should, because you can pull YouTube videos, you can pull photos, and you can search by hashtag to pull these things in. And it brings up an interesting question, because you said you'll compile these notes and pull in people's Twitters. So do you check? Do you verify that that person is who they are and are actually there before you put that into your Storify?
Well, what we've used it for has been primarily for our own events, and then social, again, the unconference. And I'm there, I see who these people are.
So you kind of know the people that you're putting into this.
That makes it easier. There's some other publications that use Storify effectively as well.
I know there's some concerns with copyright. My husband's a photographer, so he gets really nervous when people aggregate.
If I could make a comment, Yes. It's hard to like say, do you tweet too much? Some days I just might do 1 or 2. There's other days I might do 12 when my boy UC Davis pepper spray report came out. I found it fascinating. I was like just tweeting the lines like a reporter. But I believe in the live tweeting during events too, and I think most of my reporters just do the right amount. It could be 4 to 6. But what usually happens is if it's a city council meeting on the arena, people start jumping in. People start engaging you. Like you might put something out, Marcus Bertone might jump in with his comment, and Joe Davidson's going to jump in, and Carmichael Day, and then citizen. I like to follow a lot of regular citizens out there too, because I have like a real estate agent in Land Park, I have somebody someplace else, a mom in Roseville, so I get reactions from different people, and a conversation starts on Twitter, which is not only a lot of fun. You have this communication, dialogue going on, but some of them have ideas and information that they're bringing to you. Did you know this happened? Did you know about this information? So it becomes another source of getting other people's opinions too.
And immediately a perspective that you maybe didn't think of.
Right, yeah. So that's what I like about doing like tweeting from an event.
So when we talk about social media as journalists, are we talking about Twitter? Or are we talking about other forms of social media too? Or are we just using Twitter?
Everything that can put your face out there and be something where you market yourself as a brand or whatever it may be. So people just follow you and engage you. So,
Well, what do you, if you could only focus on one maybe aspect of social media, what do you think would be the most valuable as a journalist?
for me personally, it's Facebook.
How come?
Everyone's on it. Some people aren't big on Twitter. Some people, they can't follow it. It's too jumbled and too hard for them to maybe follow, whereas Facebook gives you a little bit more, and everyone has one, and everyone checks it all the time.
Except for Judy.
Except for Judy. It's okay. You will join the dark side.
Neither does Beth Ria, the host of our show, so don't worry about that.
But there are a number of people that just like just about everyone and their mom and their grandma is on Facebook, and you know that's where the vast majority. We do a thing at Box 40 where we have our viewers' voice question. So we put it out there just to get people again to engage them, but get their opinions maybe on something if it's a really sort of hot topic or whatever it may be. But we pull from all platforms. We pull from Twitter, we pull from Google Plus, we do our Google Plus Hangouts with Stephanie Cruz. Kudos to her because I still don't understand Google Plus Hangouts, but we get all these different sources. But the one we will always get the most comments on and the most feedback out of all the others will be Facebook.
I think a lot of people still find Twitter intimidating. I think they feel they have to be clever, and it is hard. This might sound like a funny statement, but it's helped me even be a better writer to have to condense everything into under 40 characters. It teaches you how to write tight. And I feel Twitter for news. The Olympic athletes got the most tweeted coverage ever. The Arab Spring revolutions in Libya have started over Twitter. I don't think they started on Facebook. They used that's pretty much the medium that's been used around the world to engage revolutions and everything else.
Yeah. All the breaking news, definitely. I think for some people it's easier to be a lurker on Facebook than it is on Twitter. So if you just want to see what people are up to, Facebook's maybe an easier way. Twitter, it seems like you have to participate more. So at least that's been my hang-up, participation.
The privacy controls too. You have wider access on Twitter, and you can use hashtags to follow certain conversations, jump in where maybe you wouldn't feel comfortable jumping in for Facebook.
Okay, so Matt stole my last question, but before we open it up to the floor here for questions, do you think social media will get rid of journalism or make journalists obsolete? And Matt, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, put me on the hook. Well, no, obviously I don't. And one of the reasons is the one I stated earlier, which is that there's still things journalists do that you don't get anywhere else. I mean, we basically, our job is to cut through the crap for you and tell you what's important. Filter out all of the noise that we're all surrounded with now on Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus and Pinterest and everything else, and tell you what matters. And you know, I'm paid to spend my whole day doing that. So not many other people have that as their focus. Not many other people, their job is to watch a particular agency or a particular group of agencies all the time and tell you what they're doing. And so that's the value that we bring to it, I think.
Judy, what do you think?
Oh, it has to be the human side. I work in radio, and I've seen the sad decline of music radio where we used to have live disc jockeys. It's now all automated, and it's just automated and it's commercial. You don't have that human connection of voice talking to you. They will always want to come to a person you trust. And one of the big responsibilities of Twitter is to get your audience to trust you. I know I have several people say, I go to you for the news. I trust you to bring me the news. So that's a big responsibility. Where are you going to get that? Social media takes over. They go to the person. I'll reference your colleague again, Marcus Fortone. They go for him for the conversation. So we'll always have the human side, hopefully.
Sabrina?
And it won't get replaced for the sheer fact, and I will even go to the thing that I did this morning where I'm up in a helicopter and I'm flying over like different fire, like places that were on fire, like vegetation fires and things. We get access that the average person just does not get, and that's just what
Makes our
happens.
job fun too.
And you
It makes our job fun.
And you have a budget for a helicopter, which most normal people don't.
Ours is a very tiny helicopter. It's not like KCRA's helicopter, which is nice. I'm like practically falling out of the thing, but we have one. I go up in the air. But again, you get access that just the average person doesn't get. And there's also, again, that trust, that ethos that just as journalists, we take that. It's not like an oath like doctors take, but we also take an oath to have ethics and morals and bring that to people. And again, cut through the crap and present you with something that's valuable and informative to you. I also, funny thing, and you had made a comment earlier that made me think about it. I have an Anchorman poster in my room, and it says, "We bring you the news so you don't have to get it yourself." And essentially, that's kind of what we do. We get it, we give it to you, and that is what we do. That is the responsibility that we take as well. Because I think everyone on this panel will take what we do as a huge responsibility, and we take it seriously. Whereas some bloggers out there maybe not so much, and I think that's why the general public will always sort of come to, because you have that trust there.
We have that. We've been trained not to have a bias. We know how to interpret what we are having, and we also have the institutional knowledge. I've been covering the Kings for 15 years before there were Maloofs, and I've been covering some of the same companies in this town for 15 years, and I have a perspective. I understand what's come before, and a blogger or someone who's just tweeting something, they don't have that history. They don't have that knowledge, and so we can't provide that perspective. We can't interpret.
So at this time, we'd like to open it up to questions. So if you have any, please raise your hand.
I do. This is so interesting that you all use social media so much. And given that there's still only 24 hours in a day and your jobs have changed, what are you not doing that you would have been doing?
Sleep.
Personal life.
I work 13 hours a day.
Sabrina, same for you?
Yeah, I get so much more sleep if I didn't have to worry about different things. And even maybe not necessarily social media, but also updating the webpage as well. So I will stay late and make sure I write a web story, and then do updates on things and whatnot, because that's all connected. It's not just I do my story and go home. No, there's so much more than putting it on the Facebook page, putting it on Twitter. Yeah.
So Matt, what about you? How do you make it so it's not your entire life?
Well, I kind of have a rule that I don't get involved in social media on the weekends. I just turn it off. I don't tweet. I don't use Facebook or anything. I mean, occasionally because I cover the environment, I'm also out in it when I'm not working as much as I can. So occasionally I'll post a picture of the outdoors on the weekends. But in terms of what I'm not doing, I'm not getting out in the field as much on the job as I used to, which does impact my writing some. I don't have that perspective, covering a project as it's happening, or writing about something in the environment as much as I used to. There just isn't time to get out of the office as much, and that isn't good.
Is that because of social media, or is that because of overall changes in the newsroom? I mean,
It's not
positions
just
that they've
social,
cut.
it's everything, yeah.
Feeding the web. You have to
Yeah.
write web
The
stories
whole
throughout
face
the day.
the whole face of journalism has really changed in 5 years. Whatever medium it is, TV, radio, or newspapers. All of us 5 years ago, we're people who are good and savvy at it.
Well, if we're working 12 hours a day, PR people are probably working 12 hours a day too, trying to keep
I
us
get
in it all.
emails from them at 6 a.m.
Any more? Right back there?
Hi there. My name's Karen. I work at the Sacramento County Airport System, and I have some questions about accuracy and how you maintain that in this. And we talked a little bit about being first. We said that you want to be accurate, and I personally, as a PR person at the airport, have experienced some stories that were inaccurate. I won't say where. And it's frustrating as a PR professional because we try to get the right information out there, and then someone will make comments offhand on a news program or something that they haven't researched. So just can you talk about how I can do a better job of helping you be more accurate?
And I will say, in my experience, people get really wordy. And not that there's anything wrong with that or anything like that. But for the most part, again, we're trying to condense this to a headline, or we're trying to do something and trying, again, the era of when I used to be able to do a nice 4-minute sweeps package is now $1.25 if I'm lucky. Like it's $1:25. Like stories that I used to be able to spend more time on. I just don't get that anymore. And I will fight for stories, and maybe I'll get 2 minutes on it. And if you think about it, really 2 minutes on a story, something that's so complex, and I know a number of things, especially the Delta issue, like you can't condense that to 1:15. There's so much. But so again, that's our responsibility as well. But if there's a way to maybe break it down into something that's really simple and really basic, because I think that's really where the issue of accuracy, because I've had that happen before. It's like, I want to mention this because you have to do that, and then this ties into this, and then all of a sudden my script is 2 minutes and 30 seconds long, and my producer's yelling at me like and hacking and slashing and taking things away. And so that happens a lot. And I think if there's a way to condense it and make it as concise as possible, that really helps.
Bullet points, anything quick glance, you can get the information.
How important is fact checking? What people, your sources tell you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah? But how much time can you actually devote to doing it?
I always tell my reporters, don't trust the numbers. 200 million people died of this disease. You go to a news conference, they put out all these numbers, challenge them, and you usually find out something different. And to answer your question, I think every single news agency would be glad to take your phone call. We don't want to be wrong. It might be in the haste, or it could be, heaven forbid, editing error. We do make mistakes because of the sheer volume that we have to put out every day. So please just call us, we'll be glad to correct it. We don't want to give the wrong information to our listenership, readership, whatever.
Any other questions? Right here?
You guys are talking about how you follow like a lot of other magazine blogs or tweets, or it sounds like you kind of follow each other in the industry. As a PR representative for a nonprofit, how do I kind of infiltrate that? Like using these little methods through Facebook or Twitter. I work for the Girl Scouts, and I know that's really fluffy, but I want to be covered just as badly as the next person. So, we're trying to stay cutting edge. We cover stuff to do with the fires because, like, our summer camp is really close to the fire, so we try to relate to that, but, like, how do I get to your desk?
Just like that. You said, if you find a news page, as soon as you said, like, wait, you're next to the fires? Girl Scouts. You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, is your camp burning up? Did you have to? You want to know that?
So how would I get that to you? Am I Facebooking you personally? Should I be getting on every news anchor's personal Facebook page?
Well, you should find out who's covering that fire, and then just call them or email them or send them a tweet.
Yeah.
And then you should, like, you should be identifying reporters who cover Girl Scouts or youth issues, whatever. And if they're on Twitter, have they created their own Twitter list of people who follow those things, and then you should get yourself on that list or monitor their list.
Can I piggyback that also? I take on a persona of like Girl Scout organization. When I'm trying to contact the media to pitch these kind of things through Facebook, should I be more of on a personal level, like this is me, Jen Lemos, marketing representative from Girl Scouts, or should I be using that Girl Scout persona?
As a former troop leader of two troops, and someone I say goes through 500, 700 emails a day, from PR people, I still prefer the emails. There's a lot more information there. But I have to tell you, when we're skimming them, we all all have to. You have to sell it in this first graph. We're going down the line. You have to grab our attention. So I would suggest not saying, hi, this is who I am. Get to what you want to pitch to us first.
Girl Scout
And then your name will be under this. Yeah.
Burning down.
Give us the headline of what the story is about. And then you can put your contact information at the end.
Yeah,
And really just leading this. Let's give us a 3-page email and links. Don't have
And
time.
customize that first line for whoever you're sending it to. Don't send the
Oh,
same
yeah.
thing to everyone else because the same
Like
thing may
applying
not
for a
matter.
job.
Right.
And I don't know if your question actually has a deeper side to it too, that, you know, if you are better known to journalists by your posts on Facebook, on your posts on Google Plus, then we just, oh yeah, that's so-and-so, and I really respect what she does, and I know what she's all about, and I know she's going to give me a good pitch. So if we know you more as a person, just like you wanting to know us more as a person, the same is true for every business person.
It's also good as well to kind of know your audience, just like in every aspect. If you're trying to do something maybe just on Girl Scouts in general, because obviously the news hook, we're always looking for a news hook. If you can sell anything with a good news hook, then we can sell that, or we can pitch that, and we can make a story out of it. But even if it's something that's just going on, morning news is always looking for segments. So if you're looking for something along those lines, but again, you're going to have to kind of give a reason for it. It's not like, hey, we're the Girl Scouts and we want to come on for whatever reason.
And don't limit yourself to think just because you're the Girl Scouts. Just about every family has a girl who was a Girl Scout or they were a Girl Scout.
Yep.
So they can relate to that too. We like to bring you stories that everyone can relate to. So everyone knows a Girl Scout was a Girl Scout by the Girl Scouts cookies.
Well, and you just celebrated 100 years of Girl
I did,
Scouts, so
yeah.
that's a peg too.
And for us at the Business Journal, we're always interested in what companies are doing with nonprofits. So if you have a company that has this great campaign to help you, we want to hear about that.
Kind of going on that one, it's breaking news. Oh, sorry, I'm Veronica and I have a PR company. So going on the breaking news and so tweeting, does that make a press release obsolete, or should we kind of whip one up and send it to you as well? Is we following up with that?
Yeah, keep doing press releases, but I mean, again, everyone.
That instant information, it's go tweet and hey, I'll follow up with a kind of formal press release.
And send us pictures. We have much more need for photos now. So maybe before we wouldn't have needed pictures, but we always are posting things, of course, to our website throughout the day, so we want to have resolution pictures.
So we have time for one more question. Right there?
Yeah, I'm curious to know about the relationship that you as journalists have with the citizen journalists, the blogosphere. Is that a positive relationship? Is that somewhere we can get information from it and are glad to see your stuff repeated, or is it more competitive, or how does that work?
Sabrina, you want to take that?
So you mean, say, for example, like something that I've done, someone like from a blog picks up and posts online or something along those
Yeah,
lines?
or vice versa, you get information from them as well.
I would say so. I mean, we have a blogger that comes on to our morning newscast at least once a week. She's a parent who comes up with fun, inexpensive things for like the whole family to do on a weekend or some kind of weekend event that's going on. Caleb Woodard. So she comes on quite a bit, and just it's a nice little 2-minute segment that we do with her maybe throughout the morning, and just talking about, hey, if you're looking for something fun and affordable with your kids, do this. So we've pulled from that, and people respond, because hey, everyone's trying to save money nowadays. And I have no problem with anything that mine ends out there. Again, it's kind of the internet. I've just kind of given up and said, okay, take it and do with it what you will, because I can't control that. There's no way to.
Matt, what about you? What about when if people post your story, I mean, how do you feel about that, or links or retweets? Is that the more preferred option?
I think it's great when people post one of my stories or any of these stories or retweet something. Sometimes we'll go after somebody if they post an entire story. I mean, we're sticklers sometimes if they can just post an excerpt and a link. We don't want them to post the whole story. But in terms of how I use blogs, I respect what bloggers do. I've been a blogger myself, but I don't really have time much to follow blogs. we have a system at the B, SAC Connect, that kind of aggregates and publishes a lot of blogs in the area, and our person who oversees that often sends me tips that she gets off of those blogs, and that's useful. That's how I use blogs a lot.
But that's someone specific at the paper kind of looking through it for you and sending it to you, not you.
Right.
Judy, what about you? Do you have a relationship with bloggers?
There's wonderful, great blogs out there. We have a lot of foodie bloggers in Sacramento, a lot of gardening bloggers, lots of modeling bloggers. And same thing within journalism. If you're going to use a citizen blogger, it's someone you have to trust and rely on. And I've read some bad blogs, so I'm not going to use that person. Somebody has to be a good writer, they have to be engaging, have unique information. We're not going to just take anybody because they write a blog. It's somebody who really knows what they're talking about, and it's an expert in their topic that we might not have. We don't have a third person. So I know I've had Miss Munchie on, I know I've had Alejandro Reyes on, and some other people that, you will use them. It's a great way of padding the content, adding additional content to your newscast.
Kelly?
Well, we don't really have citizen bloggers that we have relationships with some business bloggers. I see Scott Eggert over there, I think, back there. And Shirley Kevin, as some people know, but they come to some of our events, and they are also sort of reporting on what's happening at some of our events, and we appreciate the additional content. We appreciate that relationship.
Well, I'd like to take this time to thank our panelists very much. And food, so stick around and mingle. If you have other questions, please feel free to track anyone down. Thank you.
Actually, hold on before we excuse everybody. We have
That's right.
a couple of additional program notes and things that we want to offer up here on behalf of the club. I'm Scott Eggert, by the way. I know Laura Good opened up our event. She's our volunteer president. I'm the non-volunteer vice president. So I just want to say thanks again to this great panel. We're so fortunate here in Sacramento to have such a very social media savvy media here to pull from and to have reports. So thanks again for that, please. And so I know it seems like such a simple thing for us all to pile in this room tonight, but it's really not. It takes a lot to get you all here, believe it or not. So a few more things. So I want to thank, for one, Laura Good was our program director tonight. She was responsible for putting together this theme and tracking all these media professionals down. So we want to thank Laura for putting together the program tonight. Also, it's great when we have partners in the community to help us put events together like this. And so we also want to thank PRSA for jumping on board and helping us to promote the event and get a lot of folks here. And I saw that they're responsible for a lot of newcomers tonight, so we're really thankful for that. We also want to thank The Grange and Roostaller Beer. Roostaller, you guys are still here, right?
Better be.
They're
Roostaller.
still waiting for everybody.
And there's beer, right?
They're still
Okay, excellent. So on Twitter, everybody's like, is there beer left? So the beer is here, no fear. So here's what we want to ask. You see the name, their name is on the paper there. Follow these people on Twitter, connect with them. Thank them, please, for providing free beer tonight. We're excited about them coming out and partnering and providing some tasting. So please hook up with them online. I also want to thank our raffle donors. You're going to be hearing more about them because we have a raffle here in just a moment. And I also want to thank, we have a great team of volunteers here at SMC SAC. So I want to thank our team of volunteers. Raise your hand if you're on the leadership team. Most of them are in the back and they're not raising their hands. All right, so here. I want to plug one more thing. Coming up later this month, we have an event that we do in partnership with the Sacramento Business Journal. It's called Connectionopolis. And I heard a lot of mention of what that event's going to be about here tonight. So later this month, we're going to be talking about social media and risk for your business. It's about creating a social media policy for your business. We're going to have Josh Morgan, VP of Edelman, and actually one of the co-founders of the club is going to be on that. And we have some lawyers, you know, with a law firm with 4 different names are going to be there. Anyway, some really great panelists.
Can I say the other person?
Yes, please.
The other person, he's an e-forensics. He is a guy he's a former FBI agent. He is also, I don't know if you're a former attorney, but he has an e-forensics, so digital forensics. Cool story.
He's the guy, he'll catch you if you're doing something wrong.
Fascinating stories.
This is going to be a fantastic event. It's August 23rd, and it's going to be at Mercedes-Benz in Sacramento. And it's from 8 until 9:30 in the morning. Great way to start your day. Get some Panera bread, coffee, and some yummies. And that'll be great. So I want to invite you all to socialize up front around the great beer, and there might even be some more food up there. So I'm going to hand everything over to Kelsey and Christina. We're going to do our raffle.
All right. So you guys all have your tickets? Bring them on out. We do appreciate all the donations that you guys have given us. Thank you very much. This allows us to keep doing events like this and having really great prizes and sponsors and just keep on going. So the first one we have here is going to be a complimentary 12-month digital subscription to the Sacramento Business Journal. We thought we'd have something that kind of emulated the news reporting, and why not give you something to read. So this one will go to ticket number 102404. What? Oh, got it? Oh, awesome. We're supposed to stream. Alright, next one we have is a 1-year subscription to Sacktown Magazine. Sacktown Magazine, Jen Pritchard's husband, Max Whitaker, has a huge photo essay about the Delta and the current issue. Yay! Alright, and that is for 102484. That's it. Alright, and then we have a 1-year subscription to Comstocks Magazine, Sacramento's monthly business magazine, and that goes to 102450. 102450. Alright, next ticket, 102403. Alright, next one we have is a gift card to 1022 in Old Sac, and that goes to 102422. And that was also donated by Comstock, yes, thank you. And this is also donated by Comstock, thank you very much. Gift card to Arden Hills Resort Club and Spa. 102406. And I'm all about the mixing up the tickets, so don't worry. Making sure we're nice and fair here. Okay, and then we have a 1 day for 4 people Sacramento Zoo package with a zoo bag and a plush animal. So this goes to 102432. 432. Alright. Okay, next we have a pair of tickets to the B Street Theater production. And does it say which one it is? Any production. There you go. And this is 102453. Yeah, we have prizes at every event. And if you have prizes, we're always taking them. Alright, next we have a pair of tickets. So we have 2 of these, mind you. A pair of tickets to Saturday's Speakeasy Tour or any other walking tours. And this is donated by the Downtown Sacramento Partnership. So the first one will go to 102387. 102-486. All the way in the back. Alright, the next one we have here, we have two of these as well, and that's a $25 iTunes gift card from LCS Technologies. Stefan, is it here somewhere? Raise your hand. There you go, right in the middle. Alright, so the first one will go to 102-415.
You're gonna pay me.
Hey, that's what happens when you donate. Oh, I know. The second one goes to, you don't have 3 tickets, do you?
No. I only donated $100.
Oh, okay. I kept 50, it's okay. Alright, the next one, $25 iTunes gift card, 102-454. Here we go. And from these last two are from our food sponsors. So from Grange, Dine Grange is their Twitter handle. Excellent cheese and meats, weren't they? This is a dinner for 2 at the Grange restaurant. So this is ticket number 102-389.
All right.
This last one is from Rusteller Beer. A little t-shirt. And ticket number 102-443. Oh! I think you even handed her that ticket, so. You did.
I did. It's okay, we can both fit in it.
And that's all of the prizes we have today, but thank you so much for coming, everyone.
We've done social media and education. We did one on the Arab Spring. That was very interesting. So it's we kind of mix business, pleasure, and what's happening in the world, but we bring an event once a month. Now we are a club, but you aren't required to be a member to come to our events. We're part of a global organization called Social Media Club that has its headquarters in San Francisco. And there are professional memberships available, and there's benefits to that at the global level. And then some of our events we do charge for, but Social Media Club professional members get to come for free.